You know, if the mod's not complicated, then why is the tutorial video an hour long? Oh!
You're bleeding, Breaker.
Couple come to the door.
Oh!
I'm gonna die. Holy shit!
Good job, bro.
Is this a BFG? No.
Holy shit. Goodbye.
It's funny. GZDoom though.
Hideous Destructor has several systems that work to simulate a more tactically realistic style of combat in Doom, but it doesn't always work with the intended balance, challenge, and pacing of most Doom maps. And that's okay. There are many great map sets and megawads that you will have to struggle through, sequence break, or skip entire maps. I won't say that anything is impossible with HD, because with enough firepower and weird tricks, you can get through almost anything. This mod gives everything a much more concrete feeling in the world, and every fight is a dangerous one. You have to think about the gear you carry and how much it weighs. Physical damage and wounds stack up quickly and impact your combat effectiveness. There's a ballistic system that calculates armor penetration, bleeding, ricochets, more. While it sounds like a lot, just know that Hideous Destructor doesn't add mountains of new systems, it adds a handful of very deep and interconnected ones. Here are some of the core concepts you'll need to know going forward. Weight and inventory management is one of the fundamental systems of HD, letting you decide what you carry with you and when you use it. Any items or weapons you find, you have to hit the use key to manually pick up. This means guns, ammo, armor, equipment, and magic. This bar shows your carried bulk, representing your various pockets, bandoliers, and battle gear. This lets you see how much space you have left, and avoids using an inventory screen. The number next to it shows the total weight you're carrying, and this affects your movement speed and stamina. So you have to find a balance of total supplies to movement speed that's appropriate for your situation. Most new players learn about the weight system the hard way when their marine starts slowing down to a crawl.
Why am I walking so slowly?
Well, let's hold down our use key for a moment, check your inventory and your weight. Oh look, it's the 7 rifles and 3 shotguns you picked up. Do yourself a favor, unload the ammunition you want out of the guns you find, and then drop the ones you don't need. The last basic concept I want to cover is incapacitation. This part gets new players killed a bunch, because you can damage certain monsters enough to knock them down, but not immediately kill them. Demons will writhe and squirm on the ground until they bleed out or get back up. You aren't so lucky, as you have to stabilize your bleeding and either wait for the strength to pick yourself back up or use strong drugs. This means that it is important to confirm your kills on man-sized targets. And last note before we start, find your damn keys. Most of what you're going to need is in the HD options menu under Configure HD Controls. So the slower movement speed is going to be the first thing you notice after the many menus. You're an average soldier moving at average speeds. We mentioned that weight affects movement speed earlier, and this is where it comes into play. Let's look at it. Green weight lets you move, leap, and dodge with no problems, allowing for great close combat performance. You have lots of stamina and you can run for a long time, especially on stims. Most folks play at yellow weight. At yellow, you can still sprint and dodge. Not quite as athletic as green weight, but still definitely doable. You probably aren't hurting for ammo and meds, and sprinting for cover is still definitely an option. At red weight, you sacrifice speed for lots of supplies and firepower. You gain almost no extra speed by sprinting. The only reliable dodge move you have is sliding and diving, and making long jumps is a big problem. Switching between jogging and walking is caps lock by default. CL run true means you're jogging, CL run false means you're walking. Most of the time you'll be jogging for speed and responsive movement. There's a recoil penalty on most weapons for shooting on the move. Your firing stance isn't very stable while moving that quickly, especially if you start using rapid fire. You can turn off this full scope view while moving if it moves around too much and bothers you. Walking may be slower, but it has a lower recoil penalty and a much more stable sight picture. This makes working in close combat a breeze. Hideous Destructor has leaning you can activate using one of several methods. Individual left and right lean binds in the HD control menu, the lean key modifier, or by holding zoom and pressing strafe left or strafe right. All of these options are usable and can be tweaked to your liking in the HD options menu. Sprinting isn't complicated, but the heavier your weapon, the longer it takes for you to lower it and start moving, and the slower you bring it back up. Sprint speed and stamina is affected by your weight level, and if you're low on blood, you're going to gas out almost immediately. Crouching is used to reduce your profile, duck behind cover, dodge attacks from time to time, and let your co-op partners shoot over your head. Crouching is also the easiest way to brace your weapon. More on that at the start of the weapons section. If you catch on fire, you can crouch and spin to put yourself out. It's the closest thing we have to stop, drop, and roll. It's a very important thing to learn. Sliding is a special crouch mechanic that quickly reduces your profile in the direction you're moving. You can use it to dive forward, fall backwards, or lunge side to side. Using crouch slide gives you more movement options for avoiding damage. There isn't traditional jumping in Hideous Destructor. In its place, we have leaping and climbing. Climbing is a simple process. Walk up to a ledge, wall, or surface, and hold the jump key. If you can climb the surface, your character will pull themselves up. The heavier you are, the harder it is to climb, and it is possible to be too heavy to climb. Leaping can serve two purposes: dodging attacks in combat and gaining distance when jumping from a ledge. Approaching any downward change in height will let you leap, from a single downward step to leaping over a chasm. Dodge jumping is most often done side to side, leaping away from danger. If you're in red weight, don't bother trying. HD has a good system for calculating speed-based collision damage. Most often, this is slamming into the ground, standard fall damage, but not always. You can deal some damage by colliding into other creatures at high speed.
No.
The health and damage mechanics of Hideous Destructor are the reason why many people can't come to enjoy the mod, or refuse to give it a fair shot from the start. It's obviously going to be deeper than Doom's vanilla damage calculations, but once we take a quick walk of the core health mechanics in play, you'll see that it's not as complicated as its reputation would have you believe. As your injuries stack up, your ability to move and shoot start to fall off. After taking a really nasty hit, it's common for your aim to shake for a minute, and I'd recommend taking a breather until you can recover well enough to continue fighting. For this first lesson, I'm going to set it up similar to how many of you are going to be playing Hideous Destructor for the first time. Wait. Let's start right here. When you get hurt, you will take health damage, just like normal Doom. But then some new factors come into play. Depending on how badly you get hit, you take damage not just to your health, but to your maximum health limit. Without sufficient armor or magic in your system, chances are you're going to start bleeding as well. You can check if you're bleeding by equipping the medkit or the bandaging tool. The more this cross is bouncing, the more severe you're bleeding. Stopping the bleeding is the first thing to do here. You won't start to recover until your bleeding stops. You'll be doing this quite a bit. Get used to this process. Once the bleeding stops, you're going to be stunned, which will stunt your movement speed for just a moment. Then you'll start regenerating health back up to your maximum health limit, which is affected by 3 types of damage that reduce your total overall max health down from 100. Those types of damage are burns and wounds, and as of the making of this video, they aren't too hard to treat with the medkit. The first feature of the medkit is the built-in scanner that lets you see your current medical state, with counters for open bleeding, temporary damage you're going to recover from, wounds, and burns. The scan is not accurate while wearing armor or moving. The medkit uses nanogel compounds that pull flesh back together and remove your wounds. To use it, take your armor off, look down, and just start stitching yourself closed. The gel stops the bleeding and starts to restore your maximum health value. The only caveat is the pain. This medicine is restoring tissue and muscle over time, which does not feel good at all. You'll flinch in pain the entire time the medicine is restoring your maximum HP. Burns can be treated with the medkit as well. Take your armor off, look down, and apply by holding the zoom key while firing the medkit. Take this slow. The burn pain comes all at once and causes a small amount of health damage, but it removes a portion of burns instantly and lets you start healing to your restored max health value.
Hey Knox, you said there were 3 types of permanent damage. You only listed 2.
Yeah, I did. Aggravated damage is weird. It doesn't get inflicted by many things, and the medkit scanner doesn't measure it. The 2 things I know that cause aggravated damage are balefire from knights, barons, and cubes, and so much of the rapid damage and recovery and damage again that happens when you put berserk in your body. Well, then how do you tell if you have it? Unfortunately, it's an educated guessing game. You have to have taken enough aggravated damage that when you're fully recovered, all of your wounds and burns are done and you're full at health, you can tell that you're more damaged and more fucked up than your medkit scan says you are.
Knox, that is vague and unhelpful.
Yeah, I know it's vague and unhelpful. It's not a bug. Getting footage of it is a pain in the ass. It'd be like 3 hours long. If you don't have a medkit or don't want to flinch from second flesh, you can stop your bleeding the old-fashioned way. There's some shortcomings that make the medkit stronger. When you're using the bandage tool, you can't move. It doesn't restore your maximum health, and the bandages aren't permanent. The upside here is that you don't have to take off your armor to stop any bleeding. It doesn't leave you flinching after you stop the bleeding, and it doesn't weigh anything. Keep in mind, you can also use this on friends.
Cool.
Nice.
Stim packs can be quickly injected and provide a number of small, useful boosts, including slowed bleeding, a boost to your health regeneration rate, an increase to your stamina and carry weight, and very reduced stun effects from stamina loss or pain. They're a very powerful tool and part of an entire playstyle for the game, but if you inject one too close to the last dose, your heart explodes. The stim packs are important for our next topic. I mentioned this earlier. This is the part where we fix ourselves. You get knocked down in combat, and now we understand all of the concepts enough to get back up again. Taking enough health damage incapacitates you. You're near death, probably bleeding as well. We follow standard healing procedure as best we can. Stop the bleeding, and recover enough to stand back up. You barely have enough strength to move your limbs and crawl. The shock and pain of injecting medkit gel on your own is too much for your system to handle right now, so you're going to have to stop the bleeding with bandages. When the bleeding stops, healing and stamina recovery can begin. You can sit patiently and recover, but more often than not, there's still going to be danger around. Use your change fire mode button to cycle between your items. You can use stim packs, or berserk serum, or you can file a complaint. Stims provide a bit of HP and a boost to stamina recovery. This makes them the best tool for getting up from an end cap. It's not instant, but it certainly helps. Do not overdose. Once your shaking stops, you probably have the strength to get yourself back up. Just hit your jump key and dust yourself off. Recovering from end cap is a weird process, and it's going to take a little bit of practice and repetition before it becomes routine. Considering all the fighting you do, it's a safe bet that you'll lose blood, and your blood level affects your stamina, which in turn starts bleeding into a few other systems. The height of these bars near your heartbeat monitor indicate your general blood level. The smaller and lower they are, the lower your blood level. The medkit scanner will let you know how much blood you have left in fancy mathematical units. Any blood loss greater than 0.3 is a bad time, and you're going to want to find a second blood kit. Alright, weapons segment. I'm going to talk to you about how to use these weapons on an introductory level and give you a couple of tips that might remove some of the confusion and make you more familiar with the weapon faster. I'm not going to do a deep dive, I'm not going to jump on the code, I'm not going to bust out a spreadsheet. I am going to tell you to hold down your use key with any piece of equipment, gun, item, medical tech. I don't have to explain to you your controls. Most weapons in the mod are going to shoot projectiles. You're not really going to notice this unless you're playing co-op with bad lag or you're shooting at distances way longer than most Doom maps have. Hideous Destructor avoids using an aim-down sight mechanic. When your weapon is equipped, it is shouldered and in a state of high ready, with your sight picture fully or partially visible at all times. This can throw off folks when they're first starting, as they're used to a traditional hold a button to aim, but it's really cozy and reflexive once you get used to it. There are a few settings you can adjust for scopes and aiming in the HD options menu, such as passive sights, whether or not your sight picture stays on entirely while moving, and red dot style. You can reflexively brace your weapon against terrain to reduce recoil. This can be done on the ground, when crouching, or on any raised ground surface or ledge, and it makes this little click noise. To brace against a vertical surface like a wall or a pole or whatever you can find, you'll have to press your weapon against the wall until you hear it knock against the wall, and then you can bring it back and get the recoil benefit. One of the zoom key's many functions is to force this weapon bracing when you're near the appropriate surface. If you have your scopes set to passive only, here in the options menu, the zoom key will bring up that scope. Reloading and unloading are handled very naturally for magazine-fed small arms. Tapping the reload key like normal drops the old magazine on the ground and loads another one as fast as possible. To hold on to the magazine, hold the reload key. This action safely stows the old magazine and then loads a new one. Unloading works the same. Tap unload to drop the mag out, hold it to take it with you. Weapons that load rounds individually all have different behaviors, and take some practice to learn how they load. A small note here is that the more hurt you are, the slower you load rounds into weapons that load individually. This is where the super shotgun is very forgiving. More on that in a moment. Melee attacks can do work here in a realism mod, believe it or not. You can throw straight hits and jabs, lunging hits that use your speed to add some extra oomph, and a push followed by a heavy swing that's very useful for getting rid of a grappling enemy. Striking enemies throws off their aim, and your turning inertia can add some extra torque to the hit and make a whole world of difference when you turn a jab into a hook or a lunge into an uppercut. Having no weapons equipped also increases your agility. You can climb onto higher ledges, you can use your hands to brace your impact from a fall and fall from a little higher. You can start sprinting instantly. Hands-free also means you can drag objects, items, corpses, friends corpses. Anything that is an object in the world, you can grab and move. The pistol's a trusty, controllable backup weapon that does not collide on any terrain and has the fastest draw of any weapon in the game. There's a keybind specifically for pulling it out. Take the hint. 9mm may not have much upfront damage, but it has strong bleeds and is pretty good at defeating shields. It takes some practice and a lot of skill, but you can take down a Hell Knight with just a handgun. If you have to kill an enemy with shields and you don't have a terrible amount of firepower, leading off with the pistol to reduce the shields is a common tactic before switching back to a stronger weapon. It has 15 rounds in a magazine and you can find a fully automatic version. The Magnum is a 6-shooter, with a lower rate of fire than the standard pistol, but the heavier 3.55 round works really well against shields and punches through armor on any former humans still wearing it. The revolver can also chamber 9mm rounds in a pinch, but the ejector retention does not work properly, and when you unload it, it'll dump out any unfired 9mm shots. So the submachine gun gives you that shield kill, and the extra bleeding power of 9mm Magnum, but faster, more controllable, stronger, and more accurately than the handgun. Hell Knights with a handgun are tough. Hell Knights with a submachine gun are no problem at all. You can plug tons of bleeding holes into either an entire crowd or one big monster, then jump back behind cover, and just let all the bleeding handle the hard work. It's got 30 rounds of magazine, and it's actually integrally suppressed. 12 gauge has a very bad time against shields and body armor. It just doesn't do anything to them. But if it isn't armored, 12 gauge is savage. It ruins it. It blows it away. It's amazing. Our most common shotgun is the Hunter. This 8-round pump-action shotgun is a reliable workhorse of a gun that gives you plenty of follow-up shots when needed, and has storage loops on the buttstock for an additional 12 shells that don't need to be drawn from your inventory and can therefore be loaded faster. Whenever you hit reload using a shotgun, you pull from these storage loops first. After a full reload, it's a good idea to hold reload again and fill up these loops so they're there when you need them. You have to manually pump the Hunter after each shot, unless you switch it to semi-auto. The downside to semi-auto is found not in the gun, but in the ammunition, as there's a lot of this ammunition lying around that's just not very good. It won't generate enough gas after it's fired to kick the old round out and load the new round in. Some Marines choose to pump their own shotgun instead of risking a jam on semi-automatic. And what the Slayer Super Shotgun lacks in total capacity and number of follow-up shots, it makes up for in damage output and forgiveness. One barrel at a time is bad news. Both barrels at the same time is just cruel. The Slayer reloads are simple and happen very quickly at any health level compared to their peers. The side saddles also hold 12 rounds, same as the Hunter, and side saddle reloads for the Slayer are fast. The Volt ZM66 is not a bad gun. It has a lot of drama in the lore, it jams a bunch, it cooks off when you shoot it too much, but it's not a bad gun. The ZM is chambered in 4.26mm, a high velocity round with good stopping power at the cost of poor performance against shields and decent performance against armor. With a little practice, the moderate recoil can be used just out of short range on any fire mode without the need to stop and aim. Shooting too much on burst or fully automatic will cause the gun to get so hot that the caseless rounds will shoot themselves as they load into the gun, and it'll run out of control and dump the rest of your magazine. The gun comes in semi-automatic only or select fire versions, both of which can have an attached grenade launcher. Semi-auto is very controllable and usable on the move. Burst is insane damage in a very short time, but has a very high jam chance. I don't have to explain fully automatic fire. The biggest pain in the ass with the ZM is how it handles its magazines. If you have to load a used magazine, you tap reload to start the reloading process, ignore the legal warning, then tap reload again to force the magazine past the ammunition verification mechanism. Last side note about using dirty ZM mags is if you decide to pack in the rounds yourself, you gotta do it slowly. If you don't pack the rounds in slowly, they're gonna pop in your hand. It doesn't hurt you, but it's really annoying. The Vulcanet is an easy one. Some folks love it, some think it makes the mod too easy. It's a heavy and stable 6-barrel chain gun that has 250 rounds on tap and uses a battery to power the firing motor. If the battery gets low, your gun shoots slow. Multiple barrels prevent the weapon from getting hot enough to cook off the caseless rounds, and you can fire on a slow 700 rounds a minute or a screamin' fast 2100 rounds per minute. The gun doesn't jam, but it can feed a bad round. The easiest way to fix this is to let go of the trigger, reset it, and start squeezing again. It'll kick the bad round out, and you'll keep shooting along like nothing ever happened.
Clear.
The break-open rocket grenade launcher is light and compact, while having an extremely fast single-round reload. It's a great little package if you can't find a rocket launcher but don't want the rifle attached to the rifle launcher. So the rocket grenades have an airburst setting. Hold fire mode and move your mouse forward or backwards to start setting the airburst distance, which lets you smoke demons in cover and in foxholes. I recommend learning how to eyeball this, or preferably binding the rangefinder key. Or holding use, then hitting the rangefinder key delays the distance automatically. No, it doesn't add extra distance. Add it yourself or laze a little past your target to start. The rocket launcher is a heavy beast that holds 6 rocket grenades at a time for rapid explosive firepower. The launcher can toggle between acting as a rotary grenade launcher or arming the high-speed direct fire system of the rocket grenades, trading explosive splash damage for single target destruction and shield penetration. Airburst is still available by holding fire mode and moving your mouse, as well as the ability to chamber a single heat round, short for high explosive anti-tank. The heat rounds were designed to be fired individually, but their firepower is incredible. Just about nothing short of a boss can take one of these and live, and their explosive yield lets you destroy terrain, mostly bars and doors, but feel free to get creative. In the straight fire mode, this thing has 2 scopes, one for close-in work and one for hitting stuff way out in the distance. Okay, so the Brontornis Ultralight Cannon is easy to explain. It's a simple single-shot weapon that fires a 35mm armor-piercing incendiary sabot round, and these little bastards are a piece of hate in your hand. If it's not a boss, it dies, and the bolt will continue to pass through bad guys until it hits a wall. Most simple doors in terrain are going to break when you shoot them with this. It is very, very light for the incredible amount of damage that it puts out, and the rounds are light as well. Good luck finding one. The Thunderbuster direct energy weapon is what happens when you let eggheads shrink down a spaceship weapon. You don't use it like a gun. You don't kill demons with it as much as you kill an entire piece of real estate. There's a big explosion at ground zero, and the energy residue leaves arcs of lightning and plasma discharging for several seconds, and they fucking hurt. Do not walk through them. The energy beam causes extreme burning damage against flesh targets, but does not allow for the beam to ignite and cause the explosion. Any enemies with metal can be sparked off of rather easily, but the burning damage of a direct beam against flesh is reserved for the desperate or the foolish. The alt-fire acts as a flamethrower of sorts, splitting the beam and causing tremendous damage in close combat and frying shields. It burns through cell charge quickly, and it is incredibly easy to kill yourself by accident with this. There is an ammo consolidation feature with the Mag Manager. The only tip I know about how to really use it is just set it to automatic. The Liberator is a battle rifle that uses heavy 7mm cartridges and has a high-powered scope that you'll rarely need out to its full power, but it's there if you need it. This gun is well loved, but contrary to opinion, there are a few downsides to this gun. The first is the noticeable recoil of unsupported fire, especially on the move. The second downside is the more important one, its weight. A loaded Liberator with 120 rounds on your kit weighs the same as a loaded ZM66 with more than 500 rounds. What are the upsides? Fat steel mags work like magazines are supposed to, holding big cased bullets that don't cook off. And this thing excessively kills the shit out of anything you point it at. Huge damage, massive bleeding, headshots are devastating. It melts shields and then melts anything that has them. There are two variants of the Liberator. The bullpup version can fit in a backpack thanks to its size, and the short total length lets it operate in close quarters with fewer problems. The long barrel standard rifle variant has lower recoil at the cost of a longer, bulkier gun. Both versions can take a grenade launcher. The Boss is a high-maintenance diva of a gun, but gives you another way to take advantage of the high damage and penetration of the 7mm round. It has a very strong, variable scope with adjustable drop compensation and a 10-round capacity. The manual bolt action is very finicky and will start to jam due to getting dirt and debris in the gun. Cycle the bolt only when necessary and clean it out more than once in a while. The BFG is awkward, and it takes a while to charge. When this thing finally does let loose, though, you'll see why it gets its name. The flying ball of death sends out beams of energy that turn most things into a paste, and the ball itself creates a massive explosion that flips a room like a pancake if you can put it in the right place. Two things need to be charged for this gun to shoot: the reactor and the cell battery. The reactor is inside of the BFG, and it concentrates and collects residual frag energy in the air before it takes the external cell battery, dumps it into the reactor, and starts the chain reaction to shoot the big ball. Aim a little bit upwards when you fire, as the ball likes to dip when it flies out. You can use the BFG to charge partially spent or empty batteries. Yeah, you can use it to get infinite ammo, but the charging process is messy and unrefined. The same energy that the BFG is using to charge the batteries and shoot itself is the same sparkly green shards of energy that bring demons back to life. It's a bit of a risk if you're surrounded by corpses, but it's technically infinite ammunition. Of all the weapons you need to practice with, this is the one to spend some time with on the range. Holding primary fire sends out the bomb farther. You'll see the little arrows show up. It's nice, easy. Hold secondary fire, takes the pin out. It's still safe, and you can put the pin back in with reload. If you take out the pin and then hit secondary fire again, now it's dangerous. Throw it. They aren't complicated. You're still gonna kill yourself with them. Zoom key lets you set booby traps. They're very useful. Armor covers your whole body, but provides the most protection to your chest, abdomen, and arms. It reduces overall damage taken, lowers bleeding severity, and provides a chance to completely absorb physical attacks, both melee and ballistic. Melee damage absorption is all or nothing, but ballistic protection will work even if it doesn't fully stop the round. It turns damage that would kill you on the spot into a wound that you can push through and keep fighting. Okay, not every time, but it certainly helps improve your odds. If you find your suit of armor failing, you can get a hold of a new one by killing a former human with a helmet or a chain gunner, then walking up to their corpse and hitting the use key. It's tempting to think that armor doesn't work. Try the same fight without armor when you start thinking like this. There are two types of armor. Green garrison armor is light and lasts a long time, usually longer than you. It can stop pistol rounds and shotgun pellets if they hit the chest zone. And a fresh green vest can stop 1 or 2 4mm rounds with some luck. The materials that green armor are made out of are designed to slow the spread of flames across the wearer, and make them easier to extinguish when crouched and spinning. It's a good armor kit. It's a balance of speed and protection. Then we have blue battle armor. It has a very strong chance to stop any physical attacks from inflicting damage until it's just about to shatter. That includes stopping 4mm rifle rounds in their tracks. However, its weight inflicts a noticeable speed penalty. Blue armor's level of protection means the armor is destroyed very quickly in the process. And it has almost no materials designed to slow the spread of flame across the wearer. It is all in physical protection. Hideous Destructor uses the GZDoom inventory system to manage some of the equipment that you're going to need. So make sure you bind the controls to use, drop, and cycle through your inventory items. The backpack reduces the weight of whatever you put inside, and gets a nice little tag to match your color. The backpack itself weighs 100 blocks when it's empty, and the weight of the backpack doesn't change until you add more than 100 blocks of stuff inside of it. It's best used to carry supplies one weight level above your desired weight, and then dropping it whenever you expect to get into a fight. You can auto-pack items and your gear into the backpack by equipping your backpack, looking at the little menu, and then just walking around and picking stuff up. The ladder is a great tool for getting vertical when you need to. It looks small here, but folds up well. Really well. It has a set of mounting hooks for placing the ladder on a surface above you. To climb it, you have to get close and hit use on the ladder. When you see this text up here at the top, you're safe to start climbing. If you don't see this, and you try to start climbing, if you have issues climbing over and on top of the ledge, just turn a little to the side and climb up sideways. To pick it up and take it with you, attach yourself to the ladder, then crouch. Once you're crouched on the ladder, press the jump key and it rolls right up. Grenade traps work well enough, but what if you want a smarter option for remote explosions? IED kits are your answer. Easily assembled from one kit and one live or dud rocket grenade. Both of them work. Active mode sets the trap to proximity trigger, detonating when enemies get close. Passive mode lets you leave the mines on standby until you detonate them yourself, or switch them to active mode when you want and let the mines do their thing. The ID tag system allows you to arm or detonate mines grouped by ID number, and you can make some extremely impressive and intricate traps once you take the time to learn how it works. Doorbusters are a great tool for breaking through doors, ledges, bars, and other similar moving sectors without needing a heavy weapon. Sectors are easiest to break at their thinnest point. Some walls or doors may actually be too thick to break, or may have special properties preventing them from being destroyed. To use them, walk up to a surface you want to blow up. Set the doorbuster on it, then open up the console once you've gotten to a safe distance, and type DB space 999 to blow them up. The Defense Engagement Reconnaissance Patrol Robot is a pistol on treads with a pinch of programming. Equip it, make sure the magazine's loaded, then toss it out. It's got 3 sets of smart behavior and manual controls if you want them. Turret mode sits still and shoots anything that comes in its range. Ambush sits still and doesn't react to enemies till you change its mode. Patrol shoots enemies as the dirt moves around and sometimes goes in the direction you want it to. Manual controls have their own tricks, and a camera you can remotely see through. The control unit has a limited range, and you can't drive upstairs or any other vertical height change. The Heavy Engagement Rotary Platform is a stationary chain gun defense unit. Setting up a herp is just loading up a shaved-down Vulcanet and placing it in
Probably
position.
Full auto could take
Its
out the
battery
super.
pack and 3
might give it a
magazines
shot.
of 4mm can hold a zone of fire for a satisfying and reliable amount of time. They can be remotely controlled or crudely fired from the user's hands if you get that desperate. Listen for the sound that both the derp and the herp make. If you hear it and you know you didn't drop one, that is a hostile robot and it will fuck you up. Both the derp and the herp units can be repaired if they get broken. Take out all the ammunition and batteries, and you can tinker them back into working order. The light amp goggles had most of their fancy tech stripped out and replaced with older night vision technology. I'll miss the super cool stuff, but this new tech still gets the job done. You won't need to crank your NVGs up very far either, for most maps, and they won't work that well in total darkness either. You can change the color of the lens in the HD options menu. So this item doesn't tell you the controls, so I will. Hold your use key and then press your activate item key to increase the brightness. To decrease it, hold zoom and use, then activate the item. You'll see the number next to the light amp goggles on your HUD go up and down. Higher is brighter, lower is darker. The standalone 7mm converter is exactly what it sounds like. Taking a handful of loose 4mm rounds and a single 7mm casing to make a fresh 7.76 round. Since the Liberator comes with one of these built in the stock of the gun, these standalone converters are used when you pack a boss rifle, or one converter just isn't enough. The rad suit performs close to its vanilla counterpart. It has an unlimited protection duration, and instead, you have to worry about it being punctured or torn by damage, which often leaves you unable to flee and quickly melting. It provides a small resistance to fire and an incredible resistance to lightning, acting as a powerful tool for fighting cacodemons. When the latter won't cut it, or if you want to physics check into the ground or the wall as hard as you possibly can, you have a jetpack. The controls are super simple and it takes a battery as fuel. The effectiveness and controllability of the jetpack is absolutely tied to how much weight you're carrying. Don't put too much faith in the last 20% of your battery, unless you are very light. The chainsaw works fine in combat. Being a melee weapon means that it bypasses shields. But its utilitarian functions are where it shines for most of its use. Corpse and frag control is the strongest suit the chainsaw has. Corpses can be chopped up into piles of gore, and that's a good thing. Gore piles have to be put back together by revive or loose frag in the air before they can be revived into a functional monster again. The saw can also be used to cut open smaller doors and bars. The time it takes isn't always consistent, but the battery lasts quite a while. Berserk combat trauma kits are a great way to give yourself...
Hey Knox, you stupid asshole! Isn't this considered medical equipment? It heals you really well, right?
Most often you're gonna come out of Zerk worse than when you inject. And that's before the gigantic crash after a few minutes of redlining your heart within an inch of death. That's why it's not with the medical equipment. Your healing rate is supercharged. Your sprint speed and jump distance are jacked through the roof, and your strength for carrying weight and managing recoil is crazy high. You will feel invincible, and damn, it's fun. And you recover from damage so fast that you might not recognize that you've taken a frightening amount of lethal damage, and that you're gonna bleed to death. If you don't have yourself stapled closed before you come down from the high, you won't have the strength to once the crash hits. It also affects your personality. Swearing, screaming, and hurling your weapon away just to get your fucking hands on their necks and twist their skull, rip their limbs from their body,
in their blood and let it set.
Strange trinkets and magics that defy understanding provide a chance against the unending demon hordes. These blue vials contain a shimmering liquid that restores the body. Cuts and bullet wounds close, burns flake away, gruesome injury bubbles and warps back into flesh and bone. Poisons and evil magics are purged from veins that refill constantly with blood new. Each sip from the potion gives a dose of magic, commonly referred to as blues. As long as you have this magic energy in your body, it will keep your blood level topped up and will exchange your blues to passively remove your permanent wounds, burns, and aggravated damage over time. The amount of weight you can carry also increases the higher your blue level. So the blue potions give you a normal dose. But grabbing one of these strange spheres with the complete captured essence of a living soul dumps an incredible amount of blues into your system. After some time, the magic in your system starts to influence your surroundings. Life springs forth from rock and metal and hellstone. Demons rise from death and fight on your side, enthralled by magic that turns them against their allies, while burning out the evil within their bodies. These are magical spiritual helmets that bind themselves to your soul and provide a barrier that deflects killing blows in battle and nearly eliminates bleeding. It does not make you invulnerable. You can still definitely be killed, and it isn't permanent. So having magic armor is not an excuse for being stupid. You can be confident, but don't be reckless, because attacks that cause enough damage will punch through the spirit armor and kill you immediately. The Mastermind and Cyber Demon will not be the first ones to teach you this lesson. This artifact here is a weird one. It summons 3 spirit soldiers that attack and draw the attention of hostile demons. They can walk through walls to attack the enemy, and while their guns don't cause that much damage, they do stun lock very well and remove shields at the same time. Oh man, this could be the longest segment if we really dove into it. But I'm gonna keep it brief. Most of the enemies in HD aren't that complicated, and learning how to fight them yourself is one of the most satisfying parts of playing HD. And I don't want to take that away from anybody. There are 3 kinds of imps. The medics are the small ones. Meet your biggest problem. Little waist-high bastards that are hard to hit and undo all the hard killing you've been doing. The casters are the big bastards. Heavy tracking fireballs, or a strong scatter burst that will light you up like a match. The middle ones are the standard imps, nothing real fancy, there's just a ton of them. Once again, you can extinguish the fire on your body by crouching and spinning back and forth. The little pinky replacements called babuins and the lost souls bite and latch onto you to cause damage. Lost souls also light you on fire when they latch on. 2 ways to knock them off. Unarmed fists, then hit reload for the shoving punch. Or bump into a wall, which is a pretty dang good chance to knock it off. If it's wearing a helmet, most likely it's going to be wearing body armor. So that means the jackboots, any of the Marines walking around in multiple colors, but usually green, and the former human commandos. Yeah, I know they don't have a helmet, but they're wearing armor, I promise you. It takes a hell of a beating. It's the same armor that you get to wear. If you don't have enough firepower to punch right through it, you always have the choice of shooting in the head or shooting the legs, as the body armor does not protect these. You'll find shields on higher tier monsters and bosses. The shields are these green sparkling things when you shoot them. It acts as a recharging health buffer, and you have to break these shields to start hitting their health. When you break through the shields, you'll hear this noise, and a large splash of green will leave their body. Press your attack once you see this to start hitting their health. But be careful, if you take your time, they'll start regenerating their shields. Some demons have huge shield pools and are best handled with huge guns or lots of bleeding.
Here it comes! Boom shakalaka!
This is a great segment to transition to Hell Nobles. Knights have just enough shields to make them a serious threat when they rush you. Most folks keep a grenade launcher just to deal with the Knights, but the number of other strategies you can make up to crack their shields and take them down make Knights some of the most interesting enemies to fight in HD. They're gonna suck for a long time, but if you learn how to dodge and slide in combat, you might start liking them too. Barons aren't that much different. They're a lot slower, but they're much tankier, their magic is much stronger, and whenever they die, they release just a ton of green res energy into the air. Start moving quick after you kill a Baron. The Spider Mastermind's gun shoots 7mm at a freakishly fast pace. It'll cut through whatever corner you're trying to peek around, and your armor's not going to stop shit, because 7mm doesn't even stop for walls. Archviles have all kinds of nasty tricks, but one is crucial to understand. It doesn't have health. To kill an Archvile, you have to hurt it a certain number of times. It has lives like an old arcade game. This makes Vile fights very long and extremely dangerous. You gotta be a mixture of aggressive and patient.
Getting dealt with.
And watch out for the curse. Take a scan through the HD options menu every once in a while and just browse all the different ways you can tweak and customize your game. There's a lot of options. If you load up a map set and it doesn't let you free look, crouch, or jump, head to the gameplay options menu and change these from default to on. Less weight means farther leans. The reason being, if you are not weighed down with a bunch of gear, you can take a much more stable stance further out from your center. Between levels, you consolidate ammunition, batteries, mags, you fix broken equipment, and you heal. It also lets you come down safely enough from Berserk. Keycards are shared between players. Skull keys are not. Tap use slowly on ammo boxes you find to test if they're booby-trapped. If nothing happens for several tests, you can safely open it. If you're just getting into it, I hope this video can help kickstart and get you into playing a really awesome game that has a ton of levels and a ton of replayability. Scratches a really nice itch. You know, that mixture of, I want to kill tons of evil monsters in incredibly interesting locations, but I don't want it to be easy.